All right, some story problems are going to be a percent as part of a total. And so I want to look at these. So for example, say there were 200 students, and of those, let's see, 22 took maybe chemistry 2. Okay, so there's 200 students at this high school or college, whatever, and 22 of them took Chem 2. And so I want to know, like the question might say, like, what percent of the students took Chem 2, right? So there's a couple ways to do this. You can think, again, it's looking at part of a total. All right, so one way to do this is to just think of the part out of the total. I know the part, there's 22, and I know the total of 200. Now again, you could divide, but if you look at this closely, you can actually reduce it and just write it as 11% without needing a calculator. Another way to set this up is as a proportion. So you could say, well, you know, P out of 100 equals 22 out of 200. And again, you could cross multiply and divide if you kind of remember a little bit of your algebra. So, and then divide by the 200. And again, you're going to get 11. Now this time you don't need to move the decimal because it's, you know, 11% because you set it up right there as a percent. Another way to do this is to write it as an algebra equation. So what percent P of the students, well, what are the students? Those are your 200. Took is like is or was or were, it's your verb. Took Chem 2, well, that would be 22 of them. And then again, the algebra kind of tells you what to do. So kind of like using units to figure out what to do. Right, and again, this is 11 out of 100. If you get it as a decimal, your calculator is going to give you, you know, 0.11. You need to make sure you change that to a percent. Right, so this is kind of a part or total problem. So again, you could either, you know, kind of do some algebra there, maybe do a proportion. This only works sometimes, only on the easy ones. So I would try to navigate between those two. Let's look at another example here. Say there were 40 students in the class, and I'm going to go ahead and erase this, so hopefully that all makes sense. So let's look at another example here. All right, so let's do green, I guess, this time. All right, so say there are 40 students in a class. Okay, so there's 40 students in a class, and let's see, and 28% of the students had, okay, and all right, and so I want to figure out 28% of the students were sick. Okay, so I just want to know how many were sick. Okay. So again, I'm not asking you for a percent, but I gave you a percent to use from. So we can either do algebra or usually a proportion. Those two methods work great. So 28%, I'm going to do algebra first, of the students. Well, how many students were there? Let's see, there were 40. Had, okay, so again, that's kind of like your verb, like was, were, had, took, whatever. Get your equal sign, a cold. Well, how many of them had a cold? I have no idea. Okay, and so, but if I take, again, 28% of that, it's going to tell me. All right, so I'm just going to take my calculator, and I'm going to type that in, and I think I get, let's see, about 11.2. So I would say, you know, about 11 students. That would fit that requirement. Now again, it's just like using units to solve the previous section, except now we're using, you know, kind of the structure of the problem here. If you're not a big fan of algebra, proportions work great. 28 out of 100. So on this side we have our percent, so part out of 100. All right, so if there were 100, it'd be 28. And then over here, it's part out of total. So I have 40 students total, and I want to know the part. How many of them have colds? So if there were 100 people in my class, 28 would have colds. Well, there's really only 40 people in my class, so how many would have colds? So part if you had 100, and then part if you had 40, which is reality. So again, if you remember cross multiplying, you multiply those guys, and then we're going to divide by that 100. So I'm going to take 28 times 40, which I don't know what it is. 28 times 40, oh, sorry about that, I bumped something, is 1120. Okay, divide by 100. Again, you can see that if I divide by 100, right, that's still going to be my 11.2, so about 11 students. Right, so again, it doesn't matter which way you solve it, you're still going to get the same answer. Let's do, I'm trying to think, we'll do the next two on another video.